always used to lay you clean up the messes. Down on my knees, thought I couldn't stand up on my own. Turns out sometimes you're stronger alone.
Today we're going to finish up our 6-part deep dive into gaslighting. What it is, what the hallmarks of gaslighting are, how the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses used it to keep us small and controllable, and what those impacts look like on us all. In this final part of the series, we're going to talk about how gaslighting was used to control our relationship with others outside of the group, as well as inside. Again, remember, the purpose of gaslighting is to get you to doubt yourself so that somebody else is the person that you look to for answers. He or she with the power creates your reality. They become your reality check, and you become detached from your own thoughts and feelings, replacing them with the thoughts and feelings that were provided to you by others. As we talk about this and how it was used by the cult, again, remember that these things were often seen in our families of origin as well. These hallmarks might have been seen in your mom, your dad, your siblings, friends, partners, workmates, etc. And you may find that you employ some of these hallmarks yourself, whether against others, but more likely internally against yourself, causing self-doubt. So let's cut to hallmark number 8 of the series. The person doing the gaslighting will try to align people against you. Shunning anyone? I mean, I think that's a pretty good example of aligning people against you, don't you? But it's also one of the more obvious ones. Again, the cult's going to weaponize your relationship with family or former friends to try to control you. They're going to have them withdraw from you, trying to create a vacuum that they're going to hope is going to pull you back towards them and towards the group. But how else might they align people against you? Did you ever notice how many cliques there were in the congregations? There was definitely a social hierarchy, right? And if you weren't in the cool club, maybe you were trying to get in the cool club, or at least some version of it. There were the people that were put on pedestals in the Kingdom Hall, the spiritual giants, the pillars of the congregation, as they would say. There were often large families that dominated the landscape of individual congregations. There was the hierarchy based on status in the congregation and whether or not you were an elder, a ministerial servant, a pioneer, or just some regular run-of-the-mill publisher, right? Were you in a typical family, or were you in a divided household, or maybe you were in a single parent household? Got a lot of labels for all these different groups, don't they? In all of these instances, people were treated differently. Some were set up as examples, the others were supposed to follow those examples. Other people's paths were used to pressure you into following. You were constantly being measured by other people, and you could be shunned, reproved, marked, or more if you didn't measure up, all done publicly so that other people know where they should stand in relation to you. Oh yeah, and doesn't the cult have a huge culture of snitching on one another? If you don't report your brother or sister, then you could be a share with them in their sins. They end up turning everyone on everyone else. Hallmark number 9, they will tell you or others that you are crazy. I think that one of the most detrimental phases of this is the part where they tell us that we're crazy. The way we then internalize that and start to doubt ourselves, as mentioned in the other hallmarks previously. It's so sad the way people are taught to feel internally about themselves. They want you to feel shame that you're somehow so broken and so bad that you're not just a person that makes mistakes, you are a mistake and one to be avoided. If you think about it, I always like to refer to this whole concept of original sin as original gaslighting. This notion, as Stephen Lett so appropriately said, that babies are little enemies of God, that from the time that you're born on this planet, there's something wrong with you. You already owe a debt to God. You are already messed up. There's something wrong with you, and you need to earn something else. That's not a super healthy thing to be taught from the time you're a baby. Think about it. How many people out there right now are what we would call POMI? How many people are POMO or fully out at this point, but that spent years not looking behind the curtain at the truth about the truth because they were too ashamed, too scared to even look. It couldn't be the cult that was the problem. It had to be me, right? I'm the problem. You're the problem. But it's not them. You're crazy. You're the one that is the problem. And it's not the thing that's treating you so poorly that's the problem. It's you. Like I've said over and over and over again in this series, the person or organization gaslighting you wants you to doubt yourself so that you'll have no choice but to trust them. I mean, after all, you're going to have to trust them because they're the ones who are pointing out how wrong you are. So they must be right. But what if you start to see through their manipulation and you start to wake up to the realities of it all? Can you tell anybody? No, of course you can't. Why not? Because you risk being labeled an apostate if you do. I remember being labeled an apostate just for having questions. I had never read anything, quote, apostate or anti JW online. I was just a normal thinking human being, I think, that saw some things that didn't add up. I asked some questions, and my mom's running around telling all my friends that, or some of my friends, that she's worried about me, that I'm an apostate. So even honest hearted questions are terrifying to ask. So they've set up this system by which nobody's going to believe you if you say something that's out of line with what they teach or even ask it, because you're immediately going to be labeled as the one who's crazy. You're not just an apostate, you're a mentally diseased apostate. The addition of the words mentally diseased is used to let others know that you're crazy, that you're dangerous, that you are to be avoided because whatever it is that you have is contagious to them. Hallmark number 10, they will tell you that everyone else is a liar and not to be trusted. So this plays a little off of what we just talked about, that if you're inside the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're going to be taught that apostates outside are just liars. Don't listen to them. They're just misleading you because you're so easily misled. Listen to us and only us. I guess if you think about it, it only makes sense that they're terrified that you're going to run off and just listen to the next person, because at that point they know you're just listening to them. But ultimately, they've got to make apostates, people who are on the outside. They are basically Satan, the devil himself, right? Or a representation of Satan. You would be foolish to even give this person an audience. But it's not just apostates that Jehovah's Witnesses will deem liars. If historians or scientists agree with something taught by Jehovah's Witnesses, then historians and scientists are great and to be used as references to back up their teachings. However, unfortunately, if a historian or scientist disagrees, well, then they're a liar, right? If the news runs a fluff piece about the local Jehovah's Witnesses and their convention and gives them an opportunity to market their cult on TV, oh, the news is so trustworthy. But if the news reports on something awful that a witness did, or if they report on something like the Australian Royal Commission, then they are teaching apostate-driven lies. And you would be listening to the wrong people, or they have listened to the wrong people. So don't listen to them. They're liars. You know when you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses that you can't trust worldly people on the outside, the media, the system of education that is led by Satan, mental health professionals that might challenge your faith, other religions because they're inherently false and from the devil, the brothers and sisters in the congregation unless you judge them worthy of your association, or yourself. Trust the governing body as the faithful and discreet slave and follow them, even if they ask you to do something that might seem imprudent from a human standpoint, because it just might mean your life, right? Before we review all of these hallmarks to close out the series, there's a term that you might like to know that can help you to spot some of these gaslighting behaviors. Not all, but at the end of the day, when you point out an abuser's behavior, you're likely to face some DARVO. DARVO. It's in most commonly used terms, we might just say that they'll blame the victim. That's what kind of DARVO stands for. It's about kind of the victim blaming that occurs. But let's look at what DARVO or DARVO stands for. DARVO stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. So when you point out people's behaviors in these realms, you'll often first face denial. What you said happened didn't happen. You're just too sensitive or you're blowing things out of proportion. After denial, they're often going to attack your credibility. You're a liar. You have mental health issues, so you probably don't know what you're talking about anyway. You went along with whatever happened, and on and on and on. It's amazing how much vitriol they might sling over something that they deny and say never happened in the first place. And then comes the switch, the reversing of the victim and the offender. They are the real survivor here, the victim of your abuse. You want what they have, or you're jealous of them, or you're just trying to get them for some historical reason. It's amazing how quickly a person can spin a story and get you turned completely around if they are dedicated enough to the outcome and making sure that it is you that are in the wrong, not them. You may find yourself confused and even apologizing to that person when they are the ones who abused you. I saw a post somewhere recently. I won't get into specifics of where or what. That person's story is their story. But in it, they were basically apologizing to their parents in their writing for being such a terrible child that their parents had to beat them for not being able to live up to Jehovah's standards. They apologized for being hard-headed, for letting their parents down, for hurting their parents by not being who their parents wanted them to be, a good cult member. They would dream about their parents waking up in paradise someday and forgetting about them. And they were apologizing that their parents even ever had to have them as a daughter. Then I saw others in the comments echoing some of those sentiments. Nope. Your parents are travel agents for guilt trips if this is how you feel. If your parents, partner, friends, religion, whatever it is, makes you feel sorry for existing as yourself because you aren't who they want you to be, you have the wrong people. Sure, we all mess up at times and we do owe apologies at times to the people that we hurt. But if somebody's apologizing for their mere existence because they weren't who their parents wanted, their parents don't deserve them as a child. Find people who love you for who you are, not people who gaslight you into non existence. Find people who want to hear your boundaries and respect them, not people who see your boundaries as a challenge to be overcome. In the end, it absolutely broke my heart to read what that person wrote, but I know a lot of people that feel that way. So, what might have caused the person to feel that way in the first place? Well, my guess is they grew up with parents and in a cult that denied the realities of what was going on, that weaponized the things that they cared about against them, that lied to them and made them lie to themselves, that wore them down systematically, that confused them with inconsistency, that threw in what felt like love only to manipulate them further, that accused them falsely of things, and that tried to isolate them by confusing all of their relationships so that they didn't know which way was up and which way was down. Those are the hallmarks of gaslighting. Those are the things that make people apologize for their own mere existence. They create shame, a feeling of debt to the very people that are doing the gaslighting and abusing you in the first place, a lack of self-love or self-worth, and a life of chasing love from emotionally unavailable people that are incapable of love in the first place. So this ends my series on gaslighting. I hope that it helps you to see that so many of the ways that you feel inside it did not originate inside of you. They came from deeply dysfunctional individuals and environments. And because it didn't come from you, and it's not you, you can push back against those things, knowing where they came from. You can spot them in the wild and protect yourself from them in the future. You can search yourself for these behaviors and make sure that you're not repeating them. Knowledge is power. If you don't know that these things even exist and you've been exposed to them, well, then you're probably going to repeat the patterns in one way or the other. If you are a person that's struggling to move past the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses and the impacts on your life, I work with many individuals daily in my cult recovery coaching practice at exjwhelp.com. That's exjwhelp.com. I'm also working hard to bring new resources into the community through efforts to lift individuals up financially, through job opportunities, help marketing your business, and networking with other people as well. So you can go to theuprisingproject.com, read about our mission, how you can join if you'd like to move forward with your own job prospects, your career, or maybe you have a small business idea. But those are all things that are actually something that are maybe part of you or something that you're interested in. Imagine that, not something that you've just been gaslit into believing you have to do. So it's important to be able to follow the things that are actually a reflection of maybe something that we want in our lives. If you have an idea for something that you'd like to see discussed on the channel, go to shunpodcast.com and submit it through the contact page. So until the next episode, love yourself and others, do no harm, and go be happy.